Hello all. Through this video, I'll be explaining in detail about the site investigation procedure to be conducted for a contaminated land. Now, site investigation becomes a necessary procedure to be conducted for any site in order to understand more about its subsurface as well as its surface features. Now, in the case of a contaminated soil, a site investigation procedure becomes necessary to understand what are the types of contaminants which have caused contamination in that area, and what is the extent of contamination that it has caused. That is, how far the contaminants have transported into the other surrounding areas, and what is the extent of that contamination caused by the different contaminants. And based on that only, once we we do a thorough investigation regarding the nature and extent of contamination and its distribution, then only we'll be able to provide a suitable remediation technique for rejuvenating that land. Okay, so the site investigation procedure for a contaminated land involves four phases mainly. So the first phase is called as a desktop study. That is, before you do an actual site reconnaissance or site visit and conduct various tests or analysis to understand the type of contamination, we have to do a desktop study. That is, we have to sit and go through all the available documentary evidence regarding the site, which gives us an idea about the possible contamination that must have happened there, and regarding its previous land use, and regarding all such details we'll have to go through using the available data that is that can be collected from various offices. Okay, so after a thorough desktop study, we'll have a clear idea on what we are getting into. Okay, so then as phase 2, we'll do a site investigation. Okay, so in that site investigation, we make a proper site visit to the contaminated land, and then we have to do many tests to collect the soil samples, the water samples, and analyze what are the type of contaminants present there, and to what extent the contaminants have transported or got distributed within the area. Okay, and all these things have to be found out. Basically, it's about finding out the nature and distribution of the contaminants in the area, and based on that only a suitable remediation technique can be advised for bringing the land back to, not at least back to its original or pristine form, but at least back to a usable condition. Okay, so that is what we are trying to do by means of remediation technique. Now, so in phase 2, we'll propose a remediation which can be adopted, and which is suitable for the contaminated land that you have chosen. Now begins phase 3, where the remediation strategy is applied to the contaminated land. Okay, so whatever remediation technique has been advised based on the contaminants present in the area, that strategy, that technique will be applied, and that land will be remediated to some extent, so that it becomes useful for any proposed uh, land use for future. Now, once the remediation is done, then begins the phase 4. Okay, so phase 4 is post remediation validation, which means once you have remediated the contaminated land, then you have to certify that there is no more contamination, that is, no more contamination is prevailing in that area, or in your soil or water. So you have to do the additional test and analysis to make sure that contamination is no more prevailing in your soil samples or water samples, and that proper remediation technique which has been applied has become successful, and now the land is suitable for any proposed future use. Okay, so that is what you have to ensure during the phase 4, that is in post remediation validation. We are validating that the land is now completely remediated and it can be used for any required land use. So one by one we will see what each phase comprises of. So the first phase is called as a desktop study, where we can collect all historical data and evidence related to this particular contaminated land. Now that data will reveal all information regarding the previous land use of this particular contaminated land. Okay, so only if we know what was existing in this land, before the contamination happened, then only we'll be able to identify the source of contamination. Suppose if to know whether some industrial plants were nearby this area, or some underground or some waste dumps were there, or whether it was a previous waste dump site or a landfill site, or whether any buried waste was existing in the site. So we don't know what the source was. So to identify the source, we need to understand what the previous land use was. Okay, to what purpose this land was put to. So then only we'll be able to identify the contaminant source and undertake a proper survey. Okay, so that will give us so identifying the previous land use will give us an idea about the sources, and we can link we can actually create a model which is called as a conceptual model. Conceptual models can be created once you have identified the sources. Okay, and with that you can create a model showing the flow from the sources and its pathways, that is a pathway of the contaminants towards the receptors. Okay, so that is what a conceptual model will show. Okay, so once you have all data regarding this historical data regarding this particular land, then you will be able to develop a model or a flow diagram which will show you clearly the sources, the pathways of the contaminants, as well as the receptors which has been affected by the contamination. Okay, so then mm, um, to whoever, you have to, suppose if you are the engineer and you have been given the responsibility of conducting the site investigation, and there is a other client to whom you have to respond, developing such conceptual models or flow diagrams will be a much more easier way to communicate with your client. Okay, so he'll be able to understand more clearly rather than you explaining to him. It will be more clear to your client if you show such models or flow diagrams which can clearly show him the possible sources, the pathways, and the receptors. Okay, so developing such conceptual models for such contaminated land investigation is always useful. Now based on that we can come into the conclusions, and we can propose recommendations for phase 2 to begin. Now this is how a conceptual model would look like. This is just an example. It shows you the possible contamination. This is buried waste dumps. It could have been it would have been hazardous waste also. Sometimes hazardous waste, when you don't find a proper place for its dumping, how you dump is you dump it in underground tanks. Okay, then the leaching happened, then the plume. This is how the contaminant plume, all the entire distribution of contaminants have taken place. From there, volatilization can happen, vapor emissions takes place, and the exposure points have been shown. So here there is a stream which is also getting affected by this. Okay, so this model, as you can see, shows you the source, the pathways, and the receptors. Now this is a flow diagram, that is a model. Instead of creating a model, you can create a flow diagram as well, which explains the same thing. Okay, the primary source, the primary release, the potential secondary source, the potential exposure media, the pathways, and the receptors. Okay, so either a conceptual model can be developed, or a flow diagram explaining the pathways and receptors, showing the receptors can be developed. So now begins the phase 2. So from phase 1, you have collected enough information about the historical land use, then you develop conceptual models or flow diagrams to understand the pollutant linkages, that is between the source and the receptors. Now once that is done, we have to confirm that. Now how do you confirm? By making a proper site visit, and then uh, you can only make the confirmation by getting the actual samples from the site. Okay, so you can collect the air, soil, water, because these are the environmental um, factors which gets affected by pollution. Okay, so you can collect these samples from the site. Okay, and then you have to do, if you want to know what type of contaminants are present, you have to do various chemical testing on the samples collected from the site, and then only you will be able to validate, okay, that this is how much contamination, I mean these are the type of contaminants present in so and so concentrations at the contaminated land. Okay, and when you're collecting the soil samples also, both you have to explore laterally as well as vertically down also, because you have to see up to what depth the contamination has affected the soil, and laterally also that lateral extent of contamination should also be explored. Okay, so both ways you have to collect soil samples, both laterally as well as you know vertically downwards. Okay, and then you have to do your quantitative risk assessment, and then whatever values you get regarding the contamination, that has to be compared with standard results. That is, for every soil, water, air, if a particular contaminant or a component exceeds a certain limit, then it's said to be highly polluted. So always with the standards, or as per the Environmental Protection Agency, there will always be a standard value for each of these contaminants, allowable limit. Okay, so if that is exceeded, definitely your land is highly contaminated, and you need to propose a suitable remediation strategy or a remediation technique which is contaminant specific. Okay, that is which is absolutely based on the type of contaminants um, present in the land you are investigating. Okay, so from phase 2, you will get a clear idea on what type of contaminants you are dealing with and what is the extent of contamination that has taken place in the land. So based on that, you have to propose a suitable remediation technique. Now that remediation technique can be applied either in situ or ex situ. In situ means you can conduct the remediation technique within the site itself. Ex situ means you will have to excavate the whole contaminated soil, take it to somewhere else, that is outside the site, and do the remediation technique, and then bring back that soil and dump it in the land. Okay, that is, you are remediating it somewhere else outside the site, because you cannot apply a proper technique within the site. Okay, so either an in situ technique or ex situ technique will be chosen as a remediation technique, and that has to be applied. Okay, so you are doing the remediation to this contaminated land, so that all possible risk, okay, um, that is risk which can affect the human health as well as the health of other living organisms, those risks are eliminated by means of this remediation, and that is what we have to ensure. Okay, and once the remediation is done, we have to get the certification from the respected authority as well, uh, like even before starting the remediation, actually we have to get the approval from the recommended or authorized personnel, because like Mm, we have to show them clearly what is the type of contamination present here, what is the extent of contamination, and these are the reasons why we are recommending this type of remediation technique to this land. So these all things have to be justified in a report, and it has to be shown to the authorized personnel to get your remediation works started. Okay, so then after that only you can do your remediation work in the you can implement okay, you can implement your remediation technique in the site. Now the phase 4 is validation phase. Okay, that is, you have done the remediation now, but now you have to again, this is to you know ensure that you are no longer, I mean, the contaminated land no longer pose any threat to anyone. Okay, not even to living beings, not even to air, water, and soil. Okay, so basically by means of remediation, what you are doing is you are either physically removing the contaminants, or you are actually restricting or immobilizing the contaminants within the contaminated area itself. Okay, see, not all techniques can simply remove the contaminants out of that area. Okay, so some techniques will remove the contaminants, some techniques will arrest the contaminants within that contaminated area itself. Okay, by creating barriers around the contaminated area. Okay, so either way, you have to ensure that this remediated land no longer pose any threat to anyone. Okay, so after certain amount of time from the remediation period, you will have to conduct the chemical analysis test again. You will have to collect the soil, air, water samples. Okay, and then you have to do the chemical analysis test again. Again, the quantitative risk assessment test has to be done. It has to be compared with the standard values, and then only you will know whether the remediation you applied is actually has actually improved the land, or has actually remediated the land or not. Okay, or whether pollution is still, or whether contamination is still existing in the land or not. So that is what you have to validate. Okay, so uh, basically in that validation phase, you will have to make a proper report showing all the works that you have done, and the post works, that is the collection of samples after the remediation works, and then its analysis and its comparison with the standard values, and thereby you are proving that your land which you have remediated pose no threat or risk to anyone or anything. Okay, so these are the 4 different phases in a site investigation procedure for a contaminated land. So we have seen that there are 4 phases in the site investigation procedure for a contaminated land, and after each of these phases a report needs to be submitted to the authorized personnel. Okay, so, or from whoever who we have to get the approval or the consent. Now the first is the desktop study. Okay, so after desktop study you have to present a report. Now sometimes parallel with the desktop study we can even go and make a quick site visit also. So this report may include both data. Okay, so usually the report for a desktop study will obviously include data regarding the historical use of the land, and then what else, historical use of the land. Historical use of the land will definitely give you an idea about the type of land use which was existing previously. Then you have to give details about the ownership of the past activities that has taken place in that land, and then you have to give a detailed description about the site. Okay, the geology of the site, the archaeology, everything. Then maybe sometimes in some lands some previous remediation works might have been carried out. Then those results and conclusions should also be kept in this desktop study, because you have you have come across that during your desktop study itself only. Okay, during your desktop study only you came across such previous records of remediation works. Then if you're making a site visit parallel to your desktop study, then when you make that site visit, you can go talk to the people residing nearby if there are any, then do a survey, conduct a survey, questionnaire survey with them. So based on that you will get an idea about whether any other forms of leakages or contamination spill have taken place in the area. So such and such details have to be included in this desktop study report, and obviously this report will form a basis for your site investigation. Okay, now in your site investigation report, what you're doing is mainly you have to present all the aims and objectives of your site investigation. Okay, because from your desktop study in your desktop study report, you would have already reported what is the possible, because you have developed a conceptual model and everything based on the historical data. You will definitely report the type of contamination that is present, possibly present in the land, and its pathways, possible pathways and receptors. Okay, so based on this, in the site investigation report, you have to clearly specify your aims and objectives of the site investigation. Okay, and then you have to report, like write down how you are going to collect the necessary samples from this site, because now you know the possible contaminants and its pathways. Okay, and its possible sources. So you will have a vague idea about the extent of contamination. So now you have to plan on the sampling procedures, that is the way to collect your sample, soil, water and air. Okay, so sampling procedure and sampling techniques needs to be written down clearly, and how you are going to collect the samples respectively, why, what technique, and what are the different tests that you are going to conduct on the collected samples, and obviously the results of those tests, and then recommendations for a possible remediation technique that can be adopted for your contaminated land can also be mentioned or recommended in this report, site investigation report. Okay, now comes your remediation phase. So in the remediation phase, you're doing the remediation work. So obviously in the remediation report, you have to describe in detail the aim and objective of the remediation work, the procedure of the particular remediation technique that you are adopting, and uh, what is the schedule, what will be the schedule of that particular remediation, how long it took you to complete that remediation work. So such and such details should be mentioned in the remediation report. Then in validation report, obviously in validation phase, what you're doing is you are ensuring that your remediated land no longer pose any threat, right? So again, in the validation report or in the validation phase, you will have to collect the samples again. So again, you have to describe in detail what is the procedure, okay, by which you're going to collect the samples, what are the tests to be conducted, what are the standards against which you're going to compare, and then all these things have to be reported. And then finally you should like in the validation report, it will be clear to all whether this land has been actually remediated or not. Okay, so all details, all the sampling details, the test details, everything has to be included in the validation report. And finally, a proper recommendation can be given, like whether this land is remediated or not, and whether it can be put to any other future land use or not. Okay, so these are the 4 different reports that would come after each, or that has to be submitted to the authorized personnel after the completion of each phase. Okay, so basically it is describing the work that has been done by the engineer or the contractor for the conduct of a suitable site investigation procedure. Okay, so that's all about the site investigation procedure. Thank you.